In a recent shocking event that no one, including the people involved, expected, the NFL fined the coach of the Washington Commanders $100,000. The fine comes in after the Players Association reviewed footage of Commanders' practice sessions, finding that some of the practices violated an important part of the players' collective bargaining agreement. We'll be covering the entire situation and other NFL-related news in today's video. First up, the transgression and fine. As per a request from the NFL Players Association, the Washington Commanders handed over footage from practice sessions conducted on the 1st and 8th of June. After a thorough review of the footage, the association informed the Management Council of the NFL that it felt that these practices violated a core tenet of the collective bargaining agreement. This tenet was the prohibition against live contact in practice sessions. When the council reviewed the sessions footage themselves, they agreed with the Players Association's assessment. Following the examination, the council then swiftly sent a letter informing the general manager of the team, Martin Mayhew, regarding the penalties of such a transgression. In their words, one thing that cannot be disputed is that a team would only do such a thing going against the bargaining agreement's articles if they were looking to gain a competitive advantage. Now the letter and the response. According to the letter sent to Martin Mayhew, the Management Council believed that the tempo and ferocity of the Commanders' interior line play and pass coverage during these 11-on-11 practice sessions were telling. It was clear to them that these obviously showcased that players were participating in physical contests. They went on to elaborate that in more than one case, players were engaged in such excessive contact that many were even going to the ground. When that did happen, these players often took quite a while to recover. One of the last things the letter stated was a plea for Coach Ron Rivera to step up and intervene if practices ever got too physical, and for him to remind players that they need to maintain appropriate control during practice and follow the rules. As of yet, the Commanders have not released an official statement in response to the letter. Next, a particularly dubious incident. One of the acts that really made it clear to the NFL Management Council that the practice sessions went against the collective bargaining agreement took place on the 8th of June. The incident involved safety Jeremy Reeves and receiver Dyami Brown. Reeves apparently crashed into Brown as both of them went forward to get the ball. According to Reeves, following the incident, he didn't actually see Brown, who was cutting through traffic. He said that if he had seen him, he would have definitely pulled up. Regardless of his intention, Brown seemed to take the crash pretty hard. After the play, Brown was still confined to the ground, taking a while to get back to his feet. He then slowly walked off to the sideline, after which he was escorted to the facility. To Rivera's credit, he quickly stopped the practice session, proceeding to yell at his players, telling them to play smarter and more disciplined. After he blew up at them, he ended the full team session before the actual end time. He then told interviewers that Brown suffered a sore shoulder, but it was clearly not too bad, as he quickly recovered and showed up at the mandatory 3-day minicamp a week later. Now, Rivera on his team. Following the collision, which the media was privy to, Rivera spoke to interviewers about what had happened. He began by stating that the team just needs to be more careful and work together, and that the last thing the Commanders wanted was for anyone to get hurt. For Rivera, one of the main things he wanted to get across to his team is discipline, for them to understand that when he wants them to do things a certain way, there's a reason why that is. For everything that's happened, Rivera still has the utmost respect for his players, saying that he really appreciates the way that they practice, and that they practice hard. However, he also feels like they get a bit too competitive at times, and that they need more discipline to understand why that could be a bad thing. Rivera definitely seems like he has a deep, focused interest in his players. Earlier in June, he actually fined one of his players, Jack Del Rio, $100,000 because of comments he made regarding the United States Capitol riot that took place in January of last year. Del Rio compared the event to the riots and looting that took place in the summer of 2020, which occurred in response to the death of George Floyd. Rivera believed that his comments served as a distraction for the team, many of whom no doubt felt very strongly about the events surrounding the death of George Floyd. However, it must be noted that sources have said that many collisions in practice sessions that were closed to the media were much worse than what we've been hearing about. So at the moment, it's unclear if Rivera deserves the $100,000 fine he received from the NFL, or if his players bear the responsibility in the situation. Now, in other news, a suspension for Watson? After a recent incident involving a potential violation of the NFL's personal conduct misconduct policy, the organization might be looking to deliver a significant suspension to the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson is the quarterback for the Browns and currently faces 24 active civil lawsuits by women that have accused him of sexual misconduct. The allegations range from lewd comments to physically assaulting individuals. Watson and his attorney have so far denied the allegations, and 2 grand juries in the state of Texas have declined to charge him with a crime. Despite this, the NFL is preparing to argue the case that he should receive a suspension. They will soon be presenting the findings of their investigation to the district judge appointed as disciplinary officer by the Players Association and the league itself. The NFL hopes that the disciplinary process wraps up before the beginning of training camp, which for the Browns will happen on the 27th of July. If the disciplinary officer finds evidence of misconduct and imposes a penalty, either side could appeal to the NFL commissioner. However, if the disciplinary officer finds no evidence of misconduct, then the case would be finished with no chance of appeal. Next, DeAndre Hopkins looks to appeal. Earlier in June, the Arizona Cardinals receiver DeAndre Hopkins was suspended by the NFL for 6 games after an investigation found that he was guilty of using performance-enhancing drugs in violation of the league's policy. Hopkins was shocked to hear about the positive test results and vowed to fight the ban that he saw was not justified. At a charity softball game last week, Hopkins reiterated his stance on the ban, saying that they're still doing research into what happened. His hope is that before the season starts, his team might be able to reduce the number of games he'd been suspended for. In his words, what was found was a chemical known as ostarine, of which there was only a level of 0.01. According to Hopkins, this is the result of contamination and not direct ingestion, as anyone familiar with it might know. Hopkins also stated that he's never taken any supplements, including vitamins. It's unlikely that Hopkins will be able to attain a reduction in his suspension this late. The announcement of suspension is usually announced after the appeals process. The league also stipulates that players are still responsible for any substances that go into their bodies, no matter how that occurs. Despite the terrible turn of events for Hopkins, he still maintains an air of optimism, stating that he'll be ready to get back on the field in top form even if he has to serve his entire suspension. And NFL juggles high-profile legal battles. Training camp is less than a month away, and the NFL is currently dealing with 3 high-profile legal challenges that could disrupt the entire season. One of these involves Daniel Snyder. Snyder is the owner of the Washington Commanders and is currently being investigated by the House Oversight Committee. A congressional hearing took place to determine the extent of his transgressions, but he declined to attend, a move that surely wasn't looked upon favorably by the committee. During the hearing, the committee stated that they had found evidence that Snyder had conducted a shadow investigation in an attempt to discredit his accusers. The NFL supposedly knew about this, but didn't try to prevent it from happening, so they too are in a heap of trouble. The second legal challenge is the issue of Deshaun Hopkins, which we've already discussed. The third legal issue the NFL will have to deal with concerns Brian Flores, who is currently the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The issue regards a lawsuit alleging that Flores engaged in racist hiring practices, and the NFL has filed a motion requesting that the suit get sent to arbitration. If this happens, that means the proceedings of the case will remain private, with the NFL disciplinary officer serving as the arbitrator. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Ron Rivera deserves the NFL's fine? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.